whether that organization has direct deposit coverage or not. They just covered about 3 pages of text in less than 10 sentences. That wasn't too bad. Any questions on that? Okay. HIPAA. Oops, HIPAA. This is a topic that is treated differently by the insurance companies that I represent. Some provide HIPAA coverage, some don't. And for those, particularly in the rescue, to provide rescue and ambulance services, this is a hot topic. Because if a member or a patient's unidentifiable health information gets outside, some unauthorized person gets a hold of that information, that could, it's traced back to that rescue squad. That could be a problem. And some insurance companies provide HIPAA coverage and some do not. And how does this happen? Well, have any of your EMTs ever left a tough book in the emergency room of the hospital and driven off without it? If the claimant, the patient information is still in there, go back to get it. Someone else has taken that tough book computer. That could be a HIPAA claim. Not that the perpetrator, the thief, would know how to use it, but there's information in there that on that patient that would be treated as individually identifiable health information. So I recommend that everybody, every state, every volunteer organization confirms that their insurance provider covers HIPAA coverage, provides them from a HIPAA claim. So, and this is broken into 2 other parts. There's 2 layers of the HIPAA coverage. One is from the person whose personally identifiable health information was breached, and the other is fines and penalties that may be levied against the volunteer organization for a HIPAA violation. Some insurance companies provide both levels of coverage. And again, your agent should know about this and how his or her insurance policy works with respect to umbrella liability. As I said earlier, umbrella in the insurance world means liability coverage. What it does is it extends the limits of the general liability and the auto liability policy up by X millions of dollars. So if you have a million, your general liability policy has a $1 million per claim limit, which is, and you have a $2 million per claim umbrella liability policy. You then have $3 million of protection for each claim. Now, both the general liability and the umbrella have aggregate limits, meaning the most the insurance company will pay out in a year. So if your company has $1 million per occurrence and a $3 million aggregate limit, and the umbrella is $1 million per claim, or $2 million per claim, and a $5 million aggregate, we're looking at a total of $8 million, 3 plus the 5, that could be paid out as liability claims in 1 year. The claims from one. Auto liability, typically the auto liability has a $1 million combined single limit. Okay, that's the limit for bodily injury and property damage in one claim. Your umbrella liability policy also extends that limit up on a per claim basis to the, if it's a $1 million auto limit and a $2 million per claim umbrella limit, that's $3 million for the liability portion of each auto claim. That doesn't include physical damage, that's separate. Physical damage to your unit, that's separate. Liability would be anything that you damage that belongs to someone else. So if your fire engine drove through the front of a grocery store, just saying, hope that never happened. But that's a claim that would certainly exceed the $1 million auto liability claim. Plus, you would definitely need your umbrella coverage to help rebuild and restore not only the grocery store, but also the business lost by that grocery store while it had to be closed during repairs. You can see that claim would get very expensive very quickly. I haven't had a claim of an engine going through a grocery store, but just thought I'd throw that out there as an example. Usually a worse nightmare kind of claim for a fire and rescue company is your ambulance or your engine going down the road hot, and the limousine pulls out in front of it with a wedding party inside. And you T-bone, the driver T-bones the limousine. That would definitely tap into your auto policy, and also the umbrella policy would be brought into play to help protect you for that claim. But the umbrella liability also extends the limits of your network security, your cyber liability policy, your emergency services liability, the pollution, and the employer liability portion of the workers' comp policy. Workers' comp policies are really 2 in 1, and I think we get into that later. We'll get into that later, but that extends the umbrella, extends the limit of the employer liability portion of the workers' comp policy. I've talked to people who've been in this business much longer than I have, and they have never seen an employer liability claim, but coverage is there just in case. And when just in case shows up, I want to make sure, and you want to make sure that you're properly covered. Okay, any questions on umbrella support? Okay. Crime coverage. It's an interesting topic. Now, who would think that someone would ever steal from a volunteer fire company, a member, steal from a volunteer fire company? Well, let me just say it has happened. It's not just the treasurer who does it, but claims we've seen it could be anybody. I'm not talking about stealing a couple hundred feet of hose or a nozzle or an axe. That can have, this would cover that as well. But where this really comes into play, and where, of course, in my experience has been, is when someone steals money from the volunteer organization. And this has happened. That's why the insurance is in place. What this covers is it can either be a blanket limit for all of your members. It can be position specific. For example, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, separate limits for each one of them, or it can be both. So what I suggest you do is look at how much cash and investments could be, let's say, are vulnerable or exposed to misappropriation. I had one client, not a fire department, but a nonprofit, recently told me this, and they said, "Oh, we've got $1 million invested with a stockbroker, and the stockbroker just happened to be a member of that organization." Well, we didn't need to cover that because the stock brokerage firm had the insurance to cover that. And that was invested with them in their control and their custody. So we didn't need to cover that limit because it was covered by them. My client had to cover what other funds they had that they controlled. So I thought that was a pretty good question when they threw that out. We also provide credit card fraud. Most volunteer organizations do have a company credit card. So if there's fraud on that, we provide that as a separate limit as well. Any questions on this? Okay, workers' compensation. As I mentioned earlier, prompt claim reporting is important. And the importance of that cannot be overstated. This is for any business, but it also applies to volunteer fire and rescue companies. It's been proven statistically time and time again that the sooner a claim is reported, the sooner in this case, volunteer gets back on the job, on duty, and the less the claim costs. Not that they cut any corners, but the sooner someone can get back to work, the lower the cost of the claim are going to be. In Maryland, Chesapeake Employers Insurance Company is the only company providing workers' compensation coverage for members of the volunteer EMS and fire service. There were other carriers in Maryland up until several years ago, and the trigger point for that was when the Maryland legislature passed the Presumptive Disability Act, meaning cancer. So, well, that was good for the volunteers. The other insurance companies fled the state because they did not want to be exposed to cancer claims. Chesapeake has worked well with us and with all of our clients, and they have a special department that handles the administration of policies. And the claims are typically, I've had very few complaints about their claim handling. Nothing we couldn't get worked out if we had to be involved. But, one of the key features that's been very important over the last couple of years is the member's social security number. That must be part of the original submission when the claim is turned in. When your members are injured or taken in to be checked out, when they hit the ER, please instruct them to have that form completed as a workers' compensation claim. To check the box on the form in the ER. That's important so that puts the insurance company up front and lets the providers know that this is a workers' comp claim. It is not on the member's personal health insurance. We've had claims where that was not done, and everybody assumes that the medical bills are being paid until the member opens his mailbox and sees a dunning notice from a provider or collection agency whose bill wasn't paid. Well, it's because the insurance company didn't know about the injury, we weren't notified. And when the form was filled out in the hospital, the workers' comp box was not checked. So it went against the member's health insurance. And the problem just expanded from there. We got to get it worked out, but it's a hassle. So we'll make sure we do this thing right the first time. USL&H stands for United States Longshoremen Harbor Masters Act. How does that apply to fire and rescue department? Well, it's easy. Do you have a fireboat? Or do you do any marine work at all? Why is that necessary for a volunteer? Well, because under workers' compensation, if a member is injured while doing a marine rescue, they are entitled to a different set of benefits than the standard workers' compensation, the dry land injury, let's call it. How does that affect you or them or us? It won't, unless it goes into the employer liability portion. Well, while I'm on that topic, let me tell you how the workers' compensation policy is really two policies in one. Primarily, it's the workers' compensation we all know and deal with on a daily basis. It pays all medical costs, no deductible, no limit, no copay, all medical costs, 100%, all physical therapy, all medical devices. And then it also pays, if the person is out of work for 3 days, it pays their wages, the compensation portion of the pay that they have lost while recovering from the injury. And in Maryland, the limit is the cap on that's pretty high. It's based on their actual wages. And like any workers' comp claim, it's about 67% of their gross pay. The reason is the insurance companies figure that 33% of the gross pay is taken in all forms of payroll taxes. So the take-home pay at 67% is about the same as what they would normally be bringing up. So that goes on until the person goes back to work and everything is settled. Now, an injured member has the option at the time of filing a claim of filing an employer liability claim instead of a workers' comp claim. You can't do both. And this would be done when the injured worker or his or her estate feel that the fire department or rescue squad was negligent, and that negligence caused that injury. They were going to take the ambulance in for a brake job last week, and it didn't happen. Everybody got busy and forgot about it, and the driver was taking a patient to the hospital and approached the intersection, hit the brakes, and fellow went to the floor. That would be a case where it would be a negligence case. Like I said, we have never seen an employer liability case, but that's not saying it won't happen. But that's why that is in that policy. So it's really two sets of protection for you in one policy. And all workers' comp policies in Maryland are written that way. It's not just unique to Chesapeake employers. Sorry. Now, workers' compensation insurance is handled different in every county. For example, in Anne Arundel County, Prince George's County, the volunteers are covered under the county insurance program. In Charles and St. Mary's counties, for example, the individual stations provide their own workers' compensation policy. We just want to make sure everyone's covered. And I've run across one in an independent county where there was no coverage at the county level, and they didn't have workers' compensation insurance, and we fixed that right away. Now, the question comes up about auxiliary members. Here's the rule in Maryland. In order to be covered under workers' compensation policy, the member must be a member of the fire department or rescue squad. Which means that if they're only a member of the auxiliary, and auxiliary members are not members of the fire department, then they are not covered under workers' compensation. Now, that's a Maryland law. That's not something we made up. It wasn't something Chesapeake employers made up. This is how the law is written. So frequently, the fire department rescue squad will amend their bylaws to include auxiliary members as members of the fire department. Whether they can vote or not is immaterial. But if they're recognized as members of the fire department, they can be covered under the workers' compensation policy. If they're not members of the fire department, they are not included, and they're not included under the policy, and they're not entitled to any workers' compensation benefits, which can be a pretty sticky subject. So how do we handle that if they get injured in the job? We'll cover that in a few minutes. Any questions right now? Okay, let's move on. This is the standard form used to report a workers' comp injury. As you can see, it's the first report of injury or illness. This is a standard form. We provide one form to our clients every year. It's got your name here. It's got the insurance company, the policy number, the insurance company information, and then you fill out the rest of it. You fill out the rest of the form and submit it to Chesapeake Employers. That can be submitted either by email or by fax, or you can report the claim by phone at that number. Now, let's talk about benefits. There's group life insurance, which is guaranteed issue, no physical involved. And as I say on the top line, it's a great way to avoid that awkward moment when a member is injured or passes away, not necessarily on the job, while on duty. Group life insurance is 24/7 coverage. So it doesn't matter if they pass away on duty or not. If they pass away and they come to you saying, Dad was a member of this department, one of the charter members, been here for 60 years. But the last recession, let life insurance go because we didn't have the money to pay the premium. Can you help us out with this final expense? Well, how do you say no to that? The other side of that is, do you have that in your budget to pay that $10,000? And it becomes, like I say there, it's an awkward moment. So there are three types of benefit policies typically offered: accidental death and dismemberment, which means exactly what it says. There's a richer policy, which is accident and sickness, which provides benefits in addition to workers' comp, but they're coordinated with workers' comp. But they provide benefits beyond what workers' comp offers, such as training for a spouse to go back into the workplace, educational benefits for children that going to college or would be going to college, income to the injured person for a period of time during the recovery period. And if your department has an accident sickness policy in addition to workers' compensation coverage for anything other than a minor injury, I would suggest you file a claim on the accident sickness policy every time there's a workers' compensation claim. Again, talk to your agent first. You don't want to waste your time or a lot of paper, but these are frequently overlooked and could provide benefits to your member in the event they were injured on the job. And accident sickness is typically only while on duty. These are great recruitment and retention tools. I'm sure the recruitment and retention class also mentioned anything you could do to provide benefits at no cost to your members helps get them and helps keep them. There are also policies available that provide accident benefits or sickness benefits beyond this. They're paid for by the members. It's not, the stuff we're talking about here, this is all paid for by the fire department, the rescue department. There are benefit plans out there available for volunteers that are reasonably priced, but that they would pay for the visit. It doesn't go through the department, your company at all. I only mention that just to give them a plug. We've all seen the Aflac ad. This is like Aflac or could be Aflac. Those benefits are available. That's not through your department. That's through the member themselves would pay for it. On the group term life insurance, like I said, that's guaranteed issue. There's no physical involved. There's no underwriting involved. So prior medical history is not a factor. Premium is based on the death benefit and the average age of the members. So, any questions on that? Okay, now, when we did this in person, there was an evaluation. I would like your feedback. I will share that with be very candid. So we can improve this class. I want to make sure this is worth your time. But you take away something here that is a benefit to you. There was things that we should cover more, less, leave out, different presenter. You don't need the color of my hair. Any comments at all will be given to the MSFA for consideration for future classes. We hope next year to be back in person in Ocean City. That's the plan. Are there any questions or comments so far?
I have none.
Thanks, Steve. Didn't have an evaluation form. No comments or questions from anyone else. If you want to say something, please unmute yourself, because I see they've got pretty much everybody muted.
Hey, Ron, it's Kate from MSFA. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Well, I just wanted to thank you for your presentation today. I know it's been a little challenging getting everybody online and doing their live classes. I know we much rather be in Ocean City, but I appreciate all of your expertise and look forward to having you present next year in person, hopefully. So thank you, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Kate. Hey, do we have an evaluation form that they can fill out?
Yes, we can make one up. If you could just have my email, ktominelli@msfa.org, or just go through the website or the convention website, or even the Facebook page. Any way they can reach me, and we could do one.
Okay. Thank you. Well, folks, that wraps up all the information I've got. We covered property, portable equipment, vehicles, umbrella liability, the benefits, directors and officers, the HIPAA issue, which is a big issue. They're all big issues. When you're sitting in my seat, I'm going to make sure that my clients are properly protected. Every time your engine goes out the door, your ambulance goes out the door, members on that piece know that they are properly covered, and that you, as an officer in your company, are confident that the coverage on that ambulance or that fire engine is complete, and you are properly covered should someone allege that something went wrong. If something really does go. Okay.
Ron, thank you. It was a good presentation.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. That's the end of my presentation. So, folks, I'm going to wrap this up. If there's any comments, my phone number is 410-279-0849. And my email address is Block and Tackle, BLOCK, the letter N as in Nancy, TACKLE, at Comcast.net. Folks, thanks a lot. Stay safe. Enjoy the convention, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Ron. That was very, very good. Very informative.
Well, thanks. Thanks. Hope it was worth your time. Everyone stay safe. Goodbye now.
You
Bye-bye.
take care.
Thank you.